Hello and welcome back to the Harmony Inspired Health podcast. Today I'm joined by a beautiful soul and fellow wisdom keeper in the yoga space. Kat is a yoga and meditation teacher trained in traditional tantric hatha yoga, a Yantra Yoga guide, and a women's mentor. She empowers women to live freely, healthfully, and in alignment with their inner nature. Exactly the conversations we love here. So, together, we'll explore how Yantra Yoga and understanding your dominant life energies can lead you to live a life of less resistance, more flow, and deep soul alignment. Welcome to the podcast, Kat.
Thank you so much. Lovely intro.
It's so fun to have you here. And you are calling in from Bali, one of my favorite places in the world. But where are you actually from? Because you're living a bit of a nomad lifestyle at the minute.
Yes, exactly. And actually have been living since for 15 years, 13, 15 years, something like that. So originally I'm from Germany. I have my home base, like my European home base at the moment in Vienna. And spent many European winters in New Zealand and then South Africa. And now I'm here on Bali. So yeah, let's see what's
That is so amazing. I'm like dream of a lifestyle like that. It's so wonderful. I mean, I go
Thank
on little
you.
trips and really try to like seek out adventure, but yeah, I haven't sort of done the whole just the world is your home type of thing and just landed wherever I've had to land. And it's just so inspiring. You guys would have like the best stories and oh my gosh, the memories you're building and the people that you meet. It's super exciting. I love that for you.
Thank you. It is. It is.
Well, can you tell us how you got into the world of yoga, yantra, Ayurveda, all of the wonderful things that you do?
I can. I would say like the pivot point or the kickoff point was actually, so I was having some health issues, several little things, in like 2010, 2011, and then 2012, I was like, "Okay, let's get on to this," because one of the issues I wasn't able to solve with like allopathic medicine. So I was going to a naturopath in Berlin and he did a blood and tested on intolerances. And then I was going on this radical dietary change. So it was like an elimination diet, but not just for 10 or 21 days. It was more like, okay, some foods I had to include for 3 months, some for 6, some for a year or a year and a half. And I was basically cutting down or cutting out everything that I used to eat. And that was a radical shift for me in a way that I started looking into what am I eating? And I realized we're like sold so many lies in the supermarket, like so many things that maybe seem healthy are not healthy. And then I started looking into other things as well. Okay, what's actually in my deodorant? What's in in the cream I put on my skin? And that helped me to see like a deeper reality, maybe. I really got so much clarity out of that, or that was really the start point of my clear seeing. And interesting enough, so that was 2012. In the same year, I got in touch with yoga. I was in India and I thought, oh, well, while I'm here, I might as well do some yoga because yoga is from here. And I ended up in a quite traditional ashram, Shivananda, down in South India. And that really kickstarted my yoga journey. So when I came back home, I had the self-trust to practice on my own, just, like a basic sequence. And then with yoga, it was like a bit of an on and off thing for many years. And at one point I was like, well, I actually want to give out the life experience I've gathered, with my dietary change. Also at this, like simultaneously I was becoming self-employed and starting to live this more free life, more healthy life. And I just wanted to pass that on to people. And, at one point I was thinking, okay, should I do like a life coaching training? And I was talking to a friend and she was like, so is it life coaching training or yoga training? And she said, well, you know how to ask questions, do the yoga training. I was like, yeah, it's so obvious, right? So yeah, then I did my 200 hour, my 300 hour with the practice here in Bali during COVID, though online. And yeah, that's my yoga and health journey in a nutshell. And yeah, ever since I've been practicing traditional tantric hatha yoga now for more than 5 years, and through my trainings also got into the Yantra Yoga. Yeah, that's my journey.
I think when people hear of yoga, they think obviously of doing some down dogs on a yoga mat. So, can you explain to our listeners what is Yantra Yoga and how it differs from other yoga paths or philosophies?
It's a really good question, because still, and you would think if you're living in our bubble, you would think it's pretty clear that yoga is not just asana, not just poses, right? But a lot of people still think that. So there's like a lot of work to be done. And actually the poses are just like a super, super small part of the whole yoga spectrum. And we have different forms of yoga, not styles of yoga. I'm not talking about Ashtanga or Vinyasa or Hatha, but so you could say that, or Yantra Yoga is like a form of yoga like Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga, which would be more self-study. So these different forms of yoga make up the whole yoga system and basically integrating the forces of the chakras, if you want. When we'll be talking about the life energies, you'll see that every life energy is connected to a chakra, to one of the main 9 chakras, and also connected to a form of yoga. I mean, yoga in the end is like embracing the fact that we're more than this here, right? That we are this infinite being, and we want to merge that with our human being. And there are many paths to go there and to experience that. Yeah, and that's what we see reflected in the forms of yoga.
Beautiful. I usually explain to my students that there's the 3 Vedic sciences, and it's the Jyotish astrology, the Ayurveda, and yoga. Yoga being that the whole system that you were just talking about. And all 3 will lead to moksha, enlightenment at the end of the day. But when you take all 3 paths together, you supposedly get there quicker. Now, I haven't got there yet. I'm not a liberated being. I won't actually achieve that. But that is what the sages say. So I love how they all sort of, merge together to this beautiful holistic science, whether it's through the health and the mind of the body, through the soul, the spirit, through the chakras. So can you explain more on what are the 9 life energies, the Dharma Margas, and could you briefly share some key traits of each one of those, just to give our listeners an idea of how they differ?
Sure. So what Yantra Yoga is, you could say, I mean, there are many definitions, as with many things, but you could say it's the science on how the universe manifests. And I love to express it in that way because it's quite haptic, I find. It's like, okay, that's actually how the universe manifests. So there's a system behind it, right? We're looking at different forms of energy and how they come together. So it's a form of sacred geometry. And we look at how these energies come together, the patterns they form, and then these patterns are reflected in our world, in our material world, within us humans, but also within time. So the foundation for Yantra Yoga are the 9 chakras. So we start from the root chakra, like the first, and go up to the 9th. And every chakra has like a dominant energy. So when we look at the root chakra, it would be the force of gravity, of compression, right? So it's very much rooted here in this material world. And the energy of gravity helps us to pull particles together to form an atom. So on a molecular level, it's the energy that helps us pull particles together. And when you look at it on a more broader perspective, it's really the energy that helps us build things, right? It's super important, build the foundations. And then when we go up to the 2nd chakra, we have the sacral chakra. It's the energy of covalence. So it brings together 2 particles to form something bigger. And then we go further up. We have the 3rd chakra, Manipura chakra, seated in the navel, connected to the fire element. And here we have the energy of combustion. So the bonds that we formed within the two are then broken apart again to create something new with the combustion energy of the three. And I just want to note here, it's like super important to always have that in mind, that we're playing with these 9 chakra forces, and every chakra is connected to this distinct energy, because that plays out later on in the life energies and in the time cycles as well. And then we have the 4th chakra, Anahata chakra, in the heart, which is the element of air, the energy of repulsion or expansion. Then we have the 5th at the throat chakra, the energy of electromagnetism or vibration. I love, actually, personally, that picture of vibration. And as we'll see later, dominant 5s are often very vibrant, very, very out there people in a way. And I read this description and it really stuck with me. It's like throwing energy out at the speed of light. That's what the throat chakra does, right? This energy here is this super strong energy of vibration. And then we have the 6th chakra at the Ajna chakra, third eye. It's the energy of magnetism, bringing things together, helping us to like make a blueprint, bring together intellect and intuition. Then we have the crown chakra, which is just out of the physical realm, of the bodily realm, the energy of consciousness. And most of us, we know 7 chakras, right? We're playing with 9 here. So for those of you who are watching this podcast, you have the 9 up here, you have the 7 at the crown, you have the 8 down here. So the 9 is the source energy, emitting this transparent light, that transparent energy. And the 7 at the crown works like a prism, and then it comes out in all the colors of the rainbows. And the 8 is down there to collect all the goodness. So the 8 is the energy of receptivity, and the 9 is basically the source of energy. And that's the foundation for Yantra, to understand what life energies we are, how they are playing out, and also how these forces are playing out on a time level. Yeah.
And so when you work with these different energies, are you looking at which one you're most naturally dominant in, like your Prakriti?
So we do the calculations based on our date of birth. So you would take your birth month, your birth day, and your birth year.
Mhm.
And as we're operating with a system of 9, we always boil it down to a single digit. So, for example, I'm born in July, which gives me 7, first, which is a 3, 2 plus 1, and then 1980, which comes out to a 9. And then you sum it all up, and the sum then boiled down again to a single digit is your Dharma Marga, or your dominant life energy. So anyone really can do it now, and then just listen now as I'll be running through the dominant life energies. It's really fascinating how accurate the science is. Maybe one word up front. When I was doing these calculations the first time during my yoga trainings, I always thought I would be a 5, this very expressive, very vibrant, very communicative person. I've worked in PR and still do sometimes. And then I calculated and I came out with 1. I was like, oh my God, that's so dull, right? I'm a 1, like this grounded thing. I don't know, gravity. It's like, I didn't like it at all in the beginning, but you have to embrace your life energy. That's the fact, right? You can't choose a different one. It's actually quite cool how it's really grown on me, and I like it by now, and I see that I'm a 1. Yeah, so it's really, really interesting to see. That's how I also came up with this topic of living with less resistance, because oftentimes, and that could actually be a cool exercise to do right now before you even know your life energy. Write down like maybe 2, 3, maybe even 4 things that you don't like about your personality. Not exactly a bad habit, but something where you're like, I'm like that, but I don't really like it. So for example, for me, it was that I needed more, or I felt that I need more time to integrate things than other people. And also during my yoga trainings, in the Q&A space, we would exchange about our practices, and a lot of people would be like, oh my gosh, I felt this energy so strongly. I was up there in the higher realms. And I'm always like, I wasn't. And now knowing that I'm a dominant one, it makes so much sense, because it's the energy of gravity, it's stability, it's matter itself. So no wonder that it takes longer to break that open. And I would also say no wonder that I need more time to integrate things. But then looking at the positive characteristics, I'm like naturally grounded, and I have that. People are reflecting that to me. Sometimes when I just start talking to them, I call them and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so good to hear a grounding voice. And I also feel it in my being. I don't have a lot of FOMO, like rarely. So there are definitely positive things. And I think once we get aware of that, we can really resolve our resistances in a positive way.
So I've just done a quick calculation, so I'm not sure if it's right, but I think I got the number 3. Well, I did get the number 3 with my calculations.
Okay,
So
good.
what would that mean? What is that for me, my life energy?
So your life energy, it's connected to the third chakra, right? Manipura chakra. So the navel, the fire element. So dominant threes, you could also call them the performers. They are like the goal getters, like the action people. And yeah, so really the performers, you're super good at setting goals and actually achieving those goals. You're not just setting them, you can actually achieve them. But there's a tendency to overdo, to even be active when it's not appropriate. And dominant threes are also a little bit more prone to burn out, as are the fives, I would say, and maybe sometimes the 7. But yeah, you basically this fire element, you have this energy of combustion or transformation at your core. And
I definitely resonate
that's,
with that.
yeah,
And that my pitta dosha coming out as well.
yes. And that's actually cool that you're saying that, because I feel with the 3, for me, these are like Pitta dominant people. I'm a secondary 3, so we also have like a secondary life energy. I don't want to overcomplicate things, but there's a secondary energy playing into it along your phases of life. So we have 3 secondaries. And so I'm a dominant 1 and I'm a secondary 3. And I definitely feel that 3 energy as well. Yeah. And I would say it's very much connected to the fire element. And I'd love to dive deeper with you into that. Um,
So you would say the number ones, so the root chakra, they're like the grounded people. Like if you were just sort of like going to generalize these 9 energies, how would you go up the ladder and sort of just give a one word to what
yeah.
they are?
So always given that they're in balance, right? What I'm talking about now, because
Yeah.
sometimes you see or I see a dominant life energy. I'm like, that's nothing like them. So when we're out of balance, we might not reflect our true nature. And that's how we can look at the dominant life energies. They are our true natures. And when we connect in with them, we also have a chance to live our purpose in a much better way, because they can be these guiding lights. I know a lot of people are searching for the purpose or a more meaningful life, and knowing your life energy can definitely help you with that. So dominant ones connected to the earth element, to the energy of gravity, to the root chakra, they are grounded. When they're in balance, they're grounded, they're very dependable, reliable, but also people with lots of perseverance. And they also have to establish self-reliance and independence to live their true nature, to be their best. Also
So
called the pioneers. They're often the people with original ideas, original thinkers. Pioneers are the people that are building things for the first time in this world. So that's very much connected to the root chakra.
So from a Prakriti standpoint, they would be more like the Kapha dominant people. They're more stable and sturdy, or would they be a bit more Kapha Pitta because they need a bit more of that fire?
Say kapha pitta, because what we also have with the 1 is that there's this drive towards physical action.
Hmm. Yeah.
So actually, yeah, a Pitta Kapha combo will probably fit the one. And that's me. I visited an Ayurvedic doctor here in Bali a couple of years ago, and she told me I'm like, I think around 70% Pitta and 30 Kapha. And yeah, that would match like perfectly with my dominant one. All right. So they can also be very good leaders. And basically their life theme or one of their key potentials is to positively influence others. Yeah. And then we have a dominant 2, which is connected to the sacral chakra, the energy of covalence, right? Of bonding, of bringing 2 elements, 2 particles together. And here we have the water element. And when you look at water, it's like much more in flow, right? So they are really adaptable, no matter in what circumstances. And what comes with it is that they are also like really adaptable and able to create harmony in social situations. So they are really those social wizards capable of making things flow. And they're also called the harmonizers. So the harmonizers, the peacemakers, the diplomats, they want to create harmony in social situations, and they have to create community to be able to live their purpose, to create meaning. That's a beautiful thing. But on the other hand, anyone who calculated that they're dominant 2, just watch out that you keep your boundaries and that you're not too much influenced by the opinions and energy of others, because that's something that can come easily with the 2, because we're so focused on our environment, or we want to, harmonize things. It's easy to lose our own boundaries and overgive in a way. Yeah. And then we have the 3 we already talked about, connected to the fire element, the energy of combustion, the performers. And then there's this jump to the 4, which we also have from the 1 to the 2 and from the 2 to the 3. They're quite opposite energies. But with the 3 to the 4, the 3 is like action, right? It's like do, go, go, go. And then we have the 4, which is like feeling. So dominant 4s are usually very sensitive people. I have a friend, she said, she's a dominant 4, and she said, I oftentimes feel like a black sponge. I'm just taking up all the energy of people, of my surroundings, and that can be a burden. So if you are a dominant 4, like your home terrain is the heart chakra. And so, yeah, just be mindful of that. It's a little bit like with the 2. Can take up energies very easily. You can be very sensitive. So yeah, just make sure that you keep yourself in balance. And dominant 4s are also called the healers. They are, when in balance, really compassionate. They have naturally lots of patience, a strong sense for feeling. They're very much connected to intuition. Yeah, I would say that's like the main characteristics of a 4. And then when we go into the 5, into the Vishuddha chakra, the throat chakra, we have the adventurer. So again, throwing out energy at the speed of light. And they, like dominant 5s, they are really the adventurers. I often see that dominant 5s are very restless. They are the ones that have, I don't know if they have the most FOMO, but FOMO is definitely an issue in their lives because they want to explore. They want to taste all the facets of life. And they oftentimes have a hard time to focus, actually, because they have 1,000 ideas on their mind. That's what comes with this energy. But then they can't filter out, right? Take 3 ideas of those 1,000. And that's the thing that they really have to work on in general. So apply techniques that help you focus. Do meditation. And we were talking about the connected forms of yoga before. So meditation or even mantra japa is like an excellent way for 5s to train their mind, to train their focus, their concentration. Because when you're jumping around all the time, like you won't achieve anything, right? It might feel like freedom in the beginning, but it's actually not, because you're not going anywhere. I mean, it's really, really beautiful to be connected so intensely to the sea of possibilities, but to actually create something, boil it down, focus. And that's really one of the main challenges I see with dominant fives.
That's like a lot of my Vata students or Vata clients just have so many different ideas and so passionate and want to do all the things. And then they end up doing very little of those things because something new comes up that they want to try. And it's just the completion part. So having a little bit more of those sort of grounding elements, more of that earth element to bring them down.
Exactly. And I feel too that they are very Vata-ish, the fives that I know. And then it really depends, can you bring in those balancing, those grounding tools? Or do you maybe have like a secondary one, for example, that might help you balance things out in a natural way. Whereas if you have like a secondary 3 or a secondary 5, it might even potentize the 5 energy. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just thinking if there's anything else. Yeah. I mean, they're very much connected to communication, to expression, or yeah, really like natural journalists, but also entertainers or maybe even stuntmen. So that would be like
Daring.
typical vocations. Yeah. 4 or 5. And then we have the 6th connected to the Ajna chakra, the 3rd eye. And the 6 brings in stability. Even when we look at time cycles, and I think that's just a brief example to make it more understandable, more graspable. As 5 cycles, be it a 5-cycle year, a 5-cycle month, or even a 5-cycle day, can feel and be very chaotic because of the sea of possibilities, because of the things that are happening. And then entering into a 6 might really feel like a relief, like, oh my gosh, I'm moving into more stability. And that's what actually happens. So the 6 helps us find balance, because when you look at the how the 6 chakra is portrayed, we have these 2 petals, right? And that are the petals of intuition and intellect. And the dominant 6s, but also in a 6 time cycle, we have the natural capacity to get into a balanced state of mind, natural capacity to balance out intellect and intuition. And that's a very beautiful thing, because it helps us to make good decisions. It helps us to get things in order in a really good way. It helps us to create stability, to make settlements. And yeah.
So
And
interesting. Like I've never heard anyone talk about the chakras in this way, which is so refreshing. I'm really, really loving it, because obviously the chakras play a big part in Ayurvedic medicine as well, being a sister science and all. And when we look at like different mama points, all that. But this is, yeah, such a great way of explaining it. And I think that people really love to learn a lot about themselves. And so when you can boil it down to their unique sort of chakra that they're more dominant in, and I'm assuming that, you've talked about your secondary and your 3rd chakra pattern as well. I'm assuming that we obviously have all 9 energies. This is like our Prakriti or our Vikriti. Like we have all of the doshas and elements within us. So we can't escape from having aspects of all of these chakras that you're explaining, but we're usually more dominant in one. Therefore, we can become more imbalanced when we're not in alignment with that dominant chakra of ours.
yeah. So it's very similar to the doshas. We have all of them within us, but there's one that we're more strongly connected to because it is our true nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
And then we have the 7, also called the philosopher, dominant 7, connected to the crown chakra. And it's the energy of consciousness. And when you let that sink in for a moment, it's like, okay, wow. It's like expanding awareness. So we're just out of the physical realm. So dominant 7 can easily feel more ungrounded than the lower chakras. Just when you look at things, right? It's like quite logical. Okay, it's not in the physical realm anymore. And what does grounding mean? That you're embodied, that you're within your human body. And the 7 is just out of there. So they can get ungrounded quite easily. And they are, it's also a quote that I wrote a while ago. I think it was either my teacher, David Golay, or his teacher who gave that description of a 7. It's the ever-present witness silently watching the dance of life. And I think that captures it very well. The dominant 7s are often people who like to be on their own and just observe life, study the inner dimensions of life. So they are the natural philosophers, hence that name. They are the people who like to write, who study on their own. Yeah. I have a friend, she's a dominant 7. 7s are also very much connected to nature and music. So she just loves to do her Sanskrit and mantras studies and chanting. And it's so 7ish. Yeah. And then we have the dominant 8. Remember this picture. So they are 9 up here, 7 at the crown, 8 down here, catching all the colors of the rainbow. They are the ones who can be considered like the lucky children. There might be lots of good energy flowing towards them when they're in balance. And I mean, they are at the receiving end. It's the energy of receptivity and ultimately manifestation into this physical world. So they are or can be considered as the lucky ones, attracting opportunities, being in this state of inner and outer wealth. But they are also, in a way, mystically in touch with the universe. And that's also something to have in mind. And they can be as well personalities that have like a strong sense for justice, for mercy and charity. That's the 8, the manifester. And then we have the dominant 9 called the spiritualist. And I think that name also sums it up very well. Although I have to say, so connected to the source energy, but also connected to the energy of connection, basically. So the 9s are looking for oneness in everything. So that oftentimes are spiritual people, and there are a lot of great yogis like Paramahansa Yogananda, Gandhi, and Amma, the hugging saint, that are dominant 9s. But I also know that some scientists are 9s, and they are also looking for oneness in everything, right? Just on a different level. So that's a characteristic of the 9. Yeah, looking for the connection, looking for the oneness in all. Oftentimes humanitarians, they are often spiritually inclined, but don't have to be. Yeah.
And so this system helps you to determine your dharmic path, like where you're best fitted in the world to live in alignment. It's not looking sort of from a health perspective or anything like that, or it is?
It does in a way as well. So first of all, I would say it helps us understand how we see, how we perceive the world, how we approach people, how we approach situations, how we act and interact. But because of the chakral connection, there are also certain areas in the body that are more prone to disease than others. So, for example, with the 1, it's head issues. So headaches or migraines. And that's definitely one of my issues. So I can clearly see that reflected. With the 3, interesting enough, it's the eyes, not the head in general, but the eyes. And I'm short-sighted, so that as well makes sense for me. And yeah, we could definitely have a look into the glands, the organs that are connected. Oftentimes we see patterns. So for example, 9s, dominant 9s, they could have a tendency to nervous disorders. Yeah.
And so how does someone know if they are not in, but out of alignment with their dominant energy?
It's a good question. So either just intuitive that something's off, that that you can't express your full potential. But there's also like a list of characteristics. So when you're in balance, a dominant 1 is reliable, dependable, grounded, independent, very self-reliant. It has this power to persevere and not give up. And when you're out of balance, and they will probably also be very self-confident, and then out of balance they have self-doubt, for example, or They are just ungrounded. So you could look at this list, and that's really helpful. I did that, and I actually suggest to do that from time to time. Just looking at the characteristics, and then you see, like, highlighting how you are at the moment, and then you could easily detect your imbalances. And probably you'll feel it as well. So with Yantra Yoga, it's really this interplay of intellect and intuition. So we have the facts, we have these intellectual breadcrumbs, but then we always have to bring in our intuition. And that sounds very much like what I was saying about the third eye, right? About the Ajna chakra. And Yantra Yoga is actually the connected form of yoga with the Ajna chakra. So dominant sixes might even have like a natural urge to dive deeper into Yantra Yoga, or when you're in a 6-cycle year, for example. But yeah, it's always bringing together the facts and your intuition.
And so I have a question about, so for instance, I've got twin boys, and from their Prakriti is different. I've got one that's very more Pitta dominant and one that's very Vata dominant. And they've obviously born at the same time, slightly, a few minutes apart. So from Jyotish astrology, they can have like slightly different planetary alignments. They are essentially born at the same time, same environment, all of those things. And from an Ayurvedic perspective, their Prakriti is slightly different. But we can look at that being, well, there's a part of your Prakriti that's taken from your mum, time of birth, and everything, but also your dad. It's like your own genetic fingerprint that's made from your mother's and your father's Prakriti as well. And then it's also this karmic influence. So that was created prior to you being born into the world, and so it can change your prakriti from one twin to the other. But if we're looking purely on like calculating the date of our birth, then my twins would get a same life energy, but they are reflecting very different, like being very different people. So how do you sort of work with that? So how do I know, is one in balance, is one not? Like,
Yeah, it's a good question. And they indeed would have the same life energy because they're born on the same day. But the thing to note with Yantra is that it works, and that's the difference actually to Jyotish. In Jyotish, we work with the energies of the moon, right?
mhm.
And that's like the moon doesn't emanate light. It's always light that's reflected. And in Yantra Yoga, we work with the raw energies. It's actually the energies of the sun. How to say? Maybe you could say there's more potential for diversity, for things playing out differently. My teacher, David, phrased it once like Yantra is less fortune telling than astrology. And maybe that makes sense to you listening. So you have these raw energies that you're playing with, and there's lots of potential in there, right? So you could play it out in one way or the other and still be within your life path, your Dharma Marga range. Yeah, I would look at it
So
like that.
I did a quick calculation, and
Yeah.
in my calculation, they should be a 5.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
And
right?
yeah, it's interesting. I actually know two sisters who are both 5s, and they are so different. But sometimes when you look deeper, they just live out their 5 in a different way, and they could both be in balance. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It's not that like every 5 born on that day, they're like completely the same.
Yeah.
But still they would have like a common ground or like a common core. But it could also be that one is out of balance and the other one is like super in balance.
It's
So
like
yeah,
star signs. I mean, all Pisces aren't the same, or Capricorns aren't the same, just because they fall under that quote unquote star
yeah.
sign.
I mean, talking about the 5, let me just read out a few characteristics, right? When they are in balance and when they are not in balance. So when the energy is flowing and in balance, 5s, the adventurer, natural communicators, they are very expressive. They are very good with language. They are articulate, but also truthful, speaking their truth, right? They can be natural leaders and inspirational, drawn to travel, to exploring things. So if there's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be travel, but if there's like no urge to explore, I would say that's definitely an imbalance. They are quite adaptable, bold and fearless and courageous. So that are some balance characteristics of the 5. Also very outgoing. When the energy is too strong, they can be excessive talkers. And I've seen that definitely reflected in 5s. They are just non-stop talking. It's like, oh my God. And probably because there's so much on their mind and they have this like innate restlessness, this high vibration pulsing through them all the time. They can have a tendency to be argumentative and dishonest. They can be overachievers. Definitely when they're out of balance, when the energy is too strong, this overactive mind. And I touched on that before. So it's for 5s, it's so important to focus. And it's probably the thing they have the most resistance for. It's like they know it. And sometimes I also see they have to create structure, but they just don't want to create structure. But that's what helps. And I mean, Ayurveda, Dinacharya, that's something that could really help them, just have like 3 fixed points in your day. I don't know, your breakfast in the morning doesn't even have to be your yoga practice. Your breakfast in the morning or meditation, your lunch, and that would also be very much in alignment with Vata, right? Just have your lunch times in order. That's probably already like a big step towards structure and focus. They have a hard time being still and can be impulsive and chaotic when the energy is too strong. But when the energy is too weak, they could be shy, have a lack of confidence, be not very expressive and communicative, be poor communicators, maybe even have a fear of public speaking. We touched on a lack of desire to travel or explore new ideas, but also a resistance to change. And I think that's actually quite interesting.
Yeah, I've definitely got one that is very much sounds like a 5, my little Vata. And then my other one, he is probably definitely more, he's very pitta, he's a bit more resistant to change. He needs his structure, his routine. He's very determined, very, yeah, goal orientated. So maybe he's a little bit out of balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. It's such an exciting way to look at these chakras and just bring more wisdom, just pulling from all of these beautiful systems that are all of the one, but just have these different ways of expressing and seeing things. So I've really, really enjoyed all of the wisdom that you've shared with us today. And there's so many yes, take home moments. I'm really excited about all of this.
Good. I'm happy.
So, what is a final message that you would love to leave with our listeners, especially those feeling a little bit disconnected from their path or struggling to live in flow?
I would say definitely have a look at your Dharma Marga because it's so eye-opening, right? And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to connect with your true nature when you know that this is your true nature. And we sometimes can feel lost in this world of opportunities. And we were just talking about the 5. I think it's an energy that's very pushed by our society as well, to you could do this or you could do that, or today you're going to be this, tomorrow that. And you don't have to decide, but that also doesn't really bring you closer to your true nature. And just having this fixed point by knowing, okay, that's my true nature. Let me have a closer look. It could be regarded like a safety net or an anchor, right? And then you can contemplate these positive characteristics that come with your nature. Yeah, I think that's just very powerful and beautiful. And then you'll probably notice that it's you. Same with the doshas in Ayurveda. When we look at our childhood, how we were when we were children, we were probably much more closer to our nature than we are now. Mm, yeah. And as I said in the very beginning, these resistances that you have, they don't have to be really resistances because you see all these positive opposites popping up once you know your Dharma Marga. And I'm giving one-on-one sessions where we can definitely have a deeper look, also how it plays out together with the secondary energy, which is important. So, and can give like a completely different flavor to your Dharma Marga because we have this rule of thumb, like odd energies or odd numbers go well together and even. So for me, with the 1 and the 3, it's quite harmonic. They have the same spirit in a way. They're quite close together. But then, for example, if you're a dominant and you have a secondary 3, that's quite opposite, right? You have the power with the 3 and the feeling with the 4, or you're maybe a dominant 5 and you have a secondary 4. It's like you have this urge to know within the 5 and this restless being. And then you have the 4, which is this feeling thing. So quite opposite. And there can be like much more of a struggle, of a balancing act.
It's so fascinating. I highly recommend anyone who is sitting sort of wondering or feeling disconnected from their true self, their purpose, if they are living in resistance and not being able to sort of live in that flow state, definitely go and have your energies understood by Kat. So where can our listeners find you?
So they can find me on my website, which is katrinhecht.com, so my full name, and on Instagram, where I'm like kat.hecht. Yeah.
I will put that in the show notes. And I do apologize. There's been so many weird background noises. It is
Oh, I didn't hear them.
holidays while we're recording. My son slamming doors, and he went to pick up the dogs who just had a haircut. Now they're back all excited, barking, chasing each other. So I apologize. However, in saying that, it has been such a beautiful conversation, and I love how Yantra Yoga, like Ayurveda, helps us remember who we are beneath the noise and conditioning and shows us how to live in a more ease, self-acceptance, and within alignment. So yeah, I'm really, really excited about this conversation. And if you're listening and this conversation has something up in you, and you would like to understand your own energetic nature, like I said, go and check in with Kat. She will be able to help you with that. And if you want to learn about how to bring this all together through Ayurveda on a deeper level, then and feminine wisdom and soul aligned business, then I really invite you to explore my Ayurveda Alchemist Academy. This is the signature program where I teach women just like you how to embody Ayurveda and use it to step into your Dharma and lead a purpose-driven life and career. So if you'd love to learn more about that, you can DM me on Instagram at Harmony Inspired Ayurveda or go to my website, harmonyinspiredhealth.com.au, and book in for a free discovery call. And in the show notes, I'll also leave the link to my free Intro to Ayurveda for Health and Wellness Professionals masterclass as well. So until next time, stay radiant, stay aligned, and I look forward to chatting with you next time.
Thank you.